I love it. I love it. Well, Dr. Bob, I want to just thank you for slicing out some time to chat with us. This is, the Addict II Athlete podcast is a group of folks who are fairly new to recovery and are just kind of like coming into awareness of some of the complexities and some of the hoops that need to be jumped through, not just for services, but also just to understand their own addictions. And so I thought I might just kind of dive into some of your history, your background, just kind of, to tap into that knowledge bank that you've got and share some of your gems that you've researched, you've seen, trends, all that stuff, if that's okay.
Wow. It's kind of funny because to ask me about history, Blu, I entered the field in 69. And like a lot of folks, I didn't enter it because that was my, choice. I mean, nobody, no young kids running around the house saying, I want to be in addictions when I grow up, So,
exactly.
Yeah. So in 69, late 69, early 70, I was doing an internship in a psychiatric hospital in New Jersey. And during that internship, they were opening up one of the first drug programs literally in the country. There were a few, a lot of these came out of Synanon and other places, but this was just opening up. And when you're doing an internship, you do what you're told, kind of speaking, and I was told that I need to interview. So I went for the interview and they asked me if I knew anything about drugs and alcohol. And I said, I could roll a joint with one hand while driving. And I did acid with Timothy Leary all the time. Does that work?
There you go. Check and check.
And they said, you're the best we got. And,
oh, man.
So then they told me, and this is the coolest part, I guess, they told me, you got to work here. It was called Discovery House. So you got to work here. I showed up. They said, bring your clothing because you got to stay for a little while. It's part of our orientation program. It was really more of an intervention, and that's how I entered treatment in the first place.
Oh goodness!
Through kind of a back door.
Yeah.
And that was in 1970, and then from that time on, I've been really graced with incredible mentors, and as a result, I've worked in every level of care, and probably and everywhere from all around the globe, building treatment centers, advocating for the struggling addict and people with addiction. We're not. There's a whole thing not to say addict anymore. That. So.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I thought I was on Mars when I started preaching that 10 years ago. So, that's one of the reasons I fell in love with what you're doing.
So people with addiction, but anyway, so I've had I run a program. I've been the chief executive officer for programs. I've built programs in Beirut and Turkey and other places. I mean, in Beirut, mainly helped to shore up older programs. In Turkey, new programs. In Palestine, new programs. Things like that all around the world. And I've always been working on both sides of the fence because I have dual degrees. I'm a clinician. And I'm also a researcher, a sociologist. And I also have most of my life in compassion and caring. So putting all that together, my friend, I
love it.
I don't want to bore people with the,
they need to hear it. They need to hear that there are actually people like that have the compassion side of it too. Cause it's a dying art.
It's been a long trip, Lou. I mean, it's as we say, a long, strange trip. So that's brought me here, and today I'm still doing a lot of things also around the globe as well, but mainly what I'm advocating for is better treatment.
Thank you. It's so needed. That is how you caught our eye, is that we started noticing that there was a certain Dr. Bob that commented on a lot of the more intense posts on LinkedIn that was kind of like, well, hey, how about you look at this side of the coin? And I love that mentality of like saying, if you're going to do this, show me how you're doing it. Or if your standards are this high, how come X, Y, and Z? And I love it because finally there's a few people in the industry that's saying you've got to put your heart where you want your dollar signs, and see if you can reverse that. Because I would love to know your idea or your thoughts on the trends that we've seen, maybe even over the past decade, in kind of this money industry that really has, I think, it's kind of put the people who need services into a corner by which they're either, filing for bankruptcy or they're paying for treatment. What have you noticed in the trends that it's kind of got you, I guess, in the mindset of we can do better, quality, not quantity? I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts on just some of the trends you've seen and some of the disappointing factors of what we're providing for people that need help.
Well, let me say this kindly. We got to where we've gotten to today, and we're in this crisis that we're in today because there's always been a lack of efficacy, of research, of honesty. And what I mean by honesty, I mean honesty from a clinical perspective in the field.
Right.
So because we were abandoned by researchers, by the medical field, by the psychological field, nobody really wanted to touch us. So what happened is it got filled in with pseudoscience. It got filled in with intuition. It got filled in with people's experience, but not with really good stuff. So the entire system of rehabs is built on a very weak foundation. That's the thing you need to start with.
Yeah.
Once you understand that, you begin to understand that those with substance challenges and behavioral health challenges have gotten a raw deal.
I agree.
And so the thing is that the trend is to now provide what's called patient-centered or person-centered treatment based on your needs as you present, combined with ethics, research, outcomes, compassion, and all of that. But it all needs to come together. But you need to drive your own care. And these one-size-fits-all models of care need to close. They're unethical. They don't belong in this, and some of these, as you know, Blu, are very large embedded systems.
Yes.
And I don't mean to because I knew the people who built these things.
Right.
I mean, I was friends with Father Martin. I was friends with Vernon Johnson. I
Wow.
was these were the people I grew up with. I taught with these guys. I knew these guys. You name any of the people who were the icons who started AA, NA, TCs. I knew all these people and I grew up with them when they were all good people.
Yeah.
The problem is that what we have now is this crisis of credibility, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
And I believe that recovery takes place not in a treatment center, but in a community.
Thank you. That's exactly how we feel. And that may be to a point that I wanted to touch base with you on too, because, I've worked at many centers and facilities, that really kind of had the foundations of the 12 steps. And although I believe that they work wholeheartedly, I believe in them, it's not a one size fits all. And I don't think it was ever designed to be. And what I've kind of noticed is that treatment centers that use that as their core program, the programming in and of itself, they're taking shortcuts that end up, hurting people in the long term, because why pay again, $50,000, $60,000 for something you can get for free if you're willing to do the work? And so I think that model is fantastic in the community where it was designed to be, not behind, a paid wall for services. And I'm curious, why do you think it's taken off so big to have facilities kind of wrap the 12-step philosophy and ingrain it into their program, when really that's not how they were designed? Was it simply just because it's there and it's easy, or was it, just because, hey, everybody knows it?
Well, two things. So you have to look at history. Really, the treatment centers grew out of two different tracks. One came from the therapeutic community system, which was really out of a program called Synanon in California. And that was a lifelong TC. A lot of people split from that, make a long story short, and develop these therapeutic communities. The other came out of KY and a lot of the stuff that was happening around 12-step work. That was the soup du jour. That was the treatment du jour. That's all we had. Okay,
Yeah.
we didn't have a whole lot else. Okay, so as a result, people began to build these systems around what they call 12-step immersion.
Mhm.
And for me, that's about as unethical as you can get.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's not about 12-step at all. I probably know. I promise you, I know 12-step as well as anyone else, and has been to enough meetings in my life.
I bet.
I have total respect for the 12 and 12 and the people in the rooms. The thing is this, though, only a very small percentage of people do well in AA.
Mm-hmm.
Very small percentage.
Mm-hmm.
The dropout rate is somewhere between 70 to 90% during the first year. So but for those who do well there, it's a lifesaver. It's a godsend. It's the most wonderful thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
But for those who don't, so if you go to a program that's 12-step immersion, and you're not the person that fits, it's right church, wrong pew.
Mm.
You're getting into, you're in the, you're under the right umbrella, but you're not in the right place. And the problem is that so if 12-step is not right for me, then I'm going to be seen as a failure, and a program failure becomes a person failure.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't blame patients for program failures, but that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask you to do more. Well, you need more, and you need to stay longer, and and you do it and do it again and again, and you do it again and again, and you fail and you fail, and again, it's because you didn't do a good first step. You didn't do, your fourth step wasn't good, or whatever, and you do it over and over again, and you just get worse and worse. So we have this whole bunch of people out there who are seen as failures because of program failures.
Yeah, I can see that. And I see that. I mean, that is the reason why Addict to Athlete is a program in and of itself, is because the clients I approached one day after I saw them kind of huddled around the back of a pickup as I was their therapist. And I'm like, what are you guys doing over there? And they were forging their signature sheets for the chair of the meeting to turn into treatment so that we could say, okay, you've done your outside meetings. Here's you another star on your chart. They're like, it doesn't work for us, and there's nothing else out there. And so seeing the void, that's how Addict to Athlete was created. It was just another resource, not a replacement, but another resource. And we caught a lot of flack for that because of the traditions and whatnot. But the thing that I'm concerned about is that, and I've never done a deep dive in this, so I don't pretend to be an expert in this at all, but the family systems groups attached to some of these 12-step groups, specifically like Al-Anon, I've been doing a little bit of a deep dive in some of these people, and their message, I understand, but it's wreaking havoc on a family system. It's hands off, you stay in your lane, you cope with your problem, I'm not there for you. And I'm thinking, how do families heal together when this strange kind of metamorphosis has taken place, trying to fall under the same umbrella with the principles and the steps, and like the message being so different? I mean, there's so much. I was reading this comment from someone on social media about a family who was super struggling with, like, how do I got to go visit my son. He's in the hospital. He's had a very tragic accident with using. And the comments, Dr. Bob, were, no, leave him alone. It's his choice. You don't go in there and try to rescue him. He's like, I'm not trying to rescue him. I just want to go see my son. Like, nope, you stay in your lane. And I'm like, if that's not the death of a loving family system who's like, hey, I don't love your choices, but I love you. It blew my mind. It seems like there's been too many tentacles that have come out of this one entity. And I don't know if people really know the long-term effects of what those kind of relationships, that social isolation creates.
Well, it's totally unethical. And here's the deal. So, this whole idea, these syndromes that were made up, and they were made up. I promise you, they are totally fictitious, like codependency, like dry drunk syndrome, like, I mean, they go on and on and on, and they just came out of somebody's nightmare, not out of science. And the treatment programs have been doing something that is really awful for many years. What they do is they say they have a family program, and
Yes.
but what they do from day one is isolate the user from the family. Worst possible thing you can do.
Yep.
Then they do this, what they call family week or family 3 days. And it's not family therapy at all. What it is it's taking the user, the patient, the client, the struggling addict, and saying to that person, you are the problem.
Yep.
You are the problem for the world. You are the problem of this family. And what it does is those programs, in my opinion, assure relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they assure relapse? Because they make that your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to go home and drink or use drugs, not
Mm-hmm.
because we have now put the focus on you as the patient, and it's your job to go back home and use.
Yeah.
And they do that because they, because, as I said, the foundation of the program, you you can't you can't build on a weak foundation. What has to happen is you need to you need to clean the slate and start from scratch. And you need to begin with, a multifaceted, wide lens that includes, of course, as a referral for the right person, sure,
Mm-hmm.
medication, harm reduction, families, uh, but the most important clinical issues, and I call them clinical, and a lot of people would argue with me, but for sustained recovery is engaging people with stakeholders in the community for jobs, transportation, childcare, medical care. That's I have never met
Thank you.
I've never met a recovering person in the community who said, "Hey, I got well because of my CBT and EDMR." You
Yeah.
know, you know,
Yeah.
man,
Uh-huh.
that's craziness.
Yeah.
That's craziness. But that's so that what they keep doing is putting they putting a new coat of paint on old models and calling it innovative. New certifications make no
Right.
sense. You
Yeah.
know, now they come out with these quality of care standards, which programs meet, and then they put out a list. But those quality of care standards have nothing to do with outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So the consumer or the families are totally confused,
Yeah.
and like you said, they're so sad. They mortgage their homes for a shot in the dark. It's just, this
Yeah.
has
It
to
doesn't make
change. This has to
sense.
change.
Yeah, for sure. The new coat of paint reminds me of maybe flying into Cuba and seeing all the 52 Plymouths down there with new paint jobs, but very old cars. You're like, wait a minute, something's not right here in 2021. Makes perfect sense. But that's my thing is I've noticed this time in and time out when I've worked in facilities by which family wasn't a big part. I owned a treatment center, Dr. Bob, where it wasn't a big part. We tried to get it, but the other people was like, no, it's too much hassle. They're only here for 30 to 60 days. There's not enough time. And I'm like, we get these people back home and all of a sudden they have all these new opinions and these thoughts. And then the family's like, wait a minute, we wanted you to stop using. We didn't want you to have like opinions and like these new values. What the heck happened there? And then what happens? The same process. It starts to these push away from each other and the cycle continues. I'm 100% with you on that. So I guess my next question for you then is, what have you seen working? Maybe in those other countries that you've seen that you've helped start and stuff. What have you seen working that we're just not grasping here, like on our home turf? Like what are we missing that you've seen works, but maybe takes too much time, too much money, too much energy? So we've been like, well, let's just keep it standard issue. What have you noticed down there?
So let me tell you the Turkey story. So in Istanbul, we went there and to open up a couple treatment centers,
Mm-hmm.
and one in particular, but two. There were two, and I did everything I was supposed to do. Hired the best people, had all the instruments and everything done, enculturated by Turkish scholars. I mean, everything. A lot of cultural humility was built on cultural standards and all Turkish standards. Everything was done with the utmost consideration for the people and their needs. And we put in top psychologists and therapists, and it failed.
Oh,
We couldn't get a single person to come. Few people came in, and it was just, it was terrible. And I would, and I try to be honest and humble. I'm willing to say, hey, look, we gave it our best, but uh, and the people that were involved were caring and wonderful people. And they said to me, they said, Dr. Bob, there must be something we can do. And so what I did was I'll give you a athlete analogy. I threw a Hail Mary pass.
Nice.
And so I'd like to tell you I did this because I was smart, but I did this because I was lucky.
You got to get it out.
That's how a Hail Mary pass works.
Absolutely.
So I threw this Hail Mary pass. I respectfully let all the staff go, hired some community people, hired some people who really knew the community really well, and I hired some people who knew the systems in the community really well, and I hired somebody with some clinical skills. And what we did was, to make a long story short, we engaged stakeholders in the community. We empowered the community. We brought the community into the center. We brought in the schools, the police, the people who were given jobs, everybody into the center, and they all became. The thing grew and became amazing. I mean, we were able to get people every service they wanted, whether it was detox or jobs or transportation or childcare or housing, all because this became an empowered community. And it just flourished. It was amazing. And it was going very well until we ran into some Turkish politics. And I don't want to go down that road, but
yeah.
And I had that in many countries that I worked in. I ran into politics. But the point that I'm making is that a community-based program that meets the need, if you can get aggressive case management and manage someone through their recovery and provide the support they need, they'll do fine. But it's my sitting down with you and saying, hey, Blu, what do you need? Yeah. What is it that you need right now to be okay? Well, I need a way to get to my job. My car is terrible. Okay, let's get you a car, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Problem solvers. Yeah. The problem solvers. You're right, Dr. Bob. I feel that there is so many non-problem solvers out there that they just kind of say, well, here's some ideas. Maybe run with those and see how that works for you. But they don't sit and problem solve with them. And you know what? Listening to you talk, it kind of makes me happy. I looked over at Marissa and I kind of gave her because that's what our goal was for Addict Athlete, was not just to help the person, but it's to help the community understand that they're more than addicts, right? And we've had great success in changing the perspective on who these folks are and giving them some a little bit of energy, a little bit of push, and a little bit of coaching on how to make these things happen. But it takes tremendous amounts of effort and work, and it's not as glamorous or sexy as most of these things claim to be. And so what pushback did you get? Probably a lot from people that said, hey, wait a minute, this means that, our pocketbooks may not see the same return as they had before, or, maybe it's a burnout factor. Well, that's them. They're never going to change because of personal issues the people in the community have against this. And so when you're changing a microcosm of attitudes and beliefs, longevity, I think, is crucial to see some outcomes. But when people don't get engaged because they have these notions that once an addict, always an addict, doesn't that hinder the process altogether?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And of course, the reality is that there isn't one kind of user. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. All users have been painted with one broad brush. Yeah, they're all. These are people. These are fathers and mothers. These are sisters and brothers. These are students, and these are people with all kinds of aspirations in life. They're real people. Yeah, and they don't have one. There isn't one type. There isn't one way. There isn't one pathway. There are multiple pathways because because people are just that way. So meeting the patient where they present is really key. It doesn't, and then again, medication and harm reduction. I think, there was a time, and because I've been doing this for a while. There was a time where if I mentioned medication and harm reduction, I'd get rotten tomatoes thrown at me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And not just in the rooms, but in the professional community. So
for sure.
Today, it's unethical not to have a program that doesn't include medication and harm reduction. And not harm reduction, and I'm not talking about giving out needles, although that's okay. What I'm talking about is harm reduction as a mode of recovery, that there are people who can live a harm reduction life and still be okay. They don't need to have, the same goal as everybody else. Everybody has different goals. For some people, it's got to be abstinence or you're going to die. That's
Right.
it. For other folks, it's not. And you got to be able to have the sophistication, the science, and the ability to sort that out for people so that they can find the road, the pathway that best fits them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you explain that too, because those labels that we sometimes put on people, like the terminal uniqueness, it's like they are all unique. They may have some of the same players and situations that we all have had, but they're very different by nature, just because they themselves have experienced it different. And so by labeling them, I remember once I was in a meeting with a caseworker of mine, and he was getting upset with one of his clients, and he says, what does he think this is? Burger King, have it your way? And I'm like, shouldn't he? This is his life. This is his recovery. Should he not choose how he's going to spark his recovery? At what point was it our decision? And so those mindsets, I think, are huge and crucial, but difficult to change because everyone thinks that they have, the one size fits all standard issue response to how to treat someone. One thing that you said that I absolutely love, I noticed the other day, was a post that you'd made about the difference. And I want to get your opinion between recovery versus remission. And the way that you stated it, I thought, I've never thought of it that way. Dr. Bob, tell me a little bit about that mindset, recovery versus remission. I really liked that concept.
Well, here's the thing. Going back to the rooms as many years as I have, everybody talks about their date.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an assumption that that's the date that I went into recovery, but it may not be the date I stopped beating my wife, and or abusing my kids, or stealing, or being a jerk. It just may be the day I stopped picking up. And I think there's a big difference between not using and living and living a quality life. And I don't know the day that I started living a quality life, because for me personally, it's not just the cliche that it's a journey, as much as it is, for me, the human condition is to change, right. Is to and because change is what's the thing that's inevitable, whether you're on a journey of some sort, whether you're in a recovery pathway or not. What is evident what is inevitable is that change is change. The only thing we know for sure. The question is, what will that change make you a better person? Will you have more quality in your life, or are you going to go down a road that's going to detract? Are you going to make positive installments into your bank account, or are you going to go into the red line? So for me, it's about always striving to be humble and learn and be respectful. I will never tell you that I have the answers, my friend, because there's a book that I love that I tell everybody to read, at least all my graduate students. It was required reading. It's called "If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him," by Sheldon Kopp. And the whole idea is that if you meet the person with the answers for your life, get away from them.
Get away from them.
Yeah, because those are the people that will do you in. So, we always need to work from what's called a one down informed position. We need to, as you said, we need to respect and for me, to work with somebody who is struggling is an honor.
Yeah.
It's an honor for you to let me into your life. That humbles me. That makes me grateful that you would let me into your life. I mean, and all I could ever be is another struggling pilgrim. I can't be you. I can't tell you how to live. I can't struggle for you, but I can struggle with you. Yeah. And I can meet you in my human condition, and that's the best I can do. And I can just be another brother there with you. But once I become the architect of your life, that's when you need to kick me out.
You know what, listeners, I hope you pay attention to what Dr. Bob just said there, because that right there is the indicator that I've seen when I've thought I've worked with people in my past, like clinicians, fellow clinicians and whatnot, that have said those very things, but not demonstrated the second part of that statement, which was, you know what, we're here for you. And it's a privilege to be a part of this journey. But then they try to architect their life for them, and they try to do it the way that they found their own sobriety, their own recovery, their own healing process. And it does tremendous damage. I once worked with a very strong mentor of mine who we had a little bit of a disagreement and falling out. And I realized what he was doing. I realized that when he and I started kind of getting a little bit like intense, he would pull a spiritual card with me because he knew that would work. And the time that he pulled it, I realized this is completely inappropriate and wrong. And all of a sudden, all of it kind of flooded back in. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's doing therapy with me. And he thinks that like I'm one of his clients. And it blew me away because I'm like, you default to what you know. I'm like, that's like, to me, I thought that's very sinister, like not allowing a person to express themselves the way they feel, but to try and guide them into a place that they shouldn't be. And I've seen that time in and time out. You've probably seen that a million times with people in the past, just their own stuff putting into their client and projecting that stuff. It doesn't work, does it?
It's you're right. Exactly, my friend. It tells me, I was doing a supervision group once myself, and actually I have several mentor groups right now. It's one of the ways I pay it forward.
Excellent.
Is through mentorship. And my door, by the way, is always 100% open to all. No, there's no fees or anything. I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea. This is not a business. This is my heart. And the therapist was sitting around talking about this woman who lived under a little bridge, and she was selling her body for drugs to survive, and they were talking about how despicable she was and how awful she was and what a terrible life in person. And I turned to that social worker and I said to her, how long could you do that? And she said, I couldn't do that for 1 hour. So I said, well, can we look at her resilience? Can we look at her zest for life? Can we look at her survival? Can we hook into that?
Yeah.
And talk about, this is a person that deserves and wants a better life, but doesn't have access to the resources that you have to make that happen. Mm-hmm. How can we get those resources to her? Because to me, I don't see the same negative person you see. What I see is someone who has a big heart, who's trying to save her life. So let's talk about that. So I don't, Blu, I don't even take histories, to be honest. My life is moving. The way I work is moving forward. It's like a car. A car has a big windshield and a small rear view mirror. Yeah. I don't look in the rear view mirror. I don't ask my people to. And I never mind for pathology. I never look around for sickness, because if you look around for sickness in any person, you can find it.
Oh, for sure.
Why would you pay somebody to do that? What I look for is what's right about people. How do you build on that and move forward?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And hearing you say that it brings this warmth, because I've always felt that same way, that like these people, you capitalize on their strengths and you show them that, look, if you can do this while searching for drugs, and you can create something out of absolutely nothing. Imagine what would happen if we flipped that script and we used it for something positive, that same energy, that same drive. If you can be a world-class addict, you can be a world-class individual in sobriety all the way to healing. And it's funny because they always default to it's easier to default to the bad. So I say, if I give you 5 minutes, go out and make your life as miserable as possible, could you? They're like, yeah, I wouldn't even need 5 minutes. But I say, go make your life as amazing as possible in 5 minutes. And they're like, I don't think so. I'm like, you guys, the same principles apply. And I think it's tapping into what they already are really good at. And I've noticed this, Dr. Bob. I've noticed that when I've doubted some of my athletes, the ones who are in recovery and making changes, we were doing a fundraiser to get a kid a racing wheelchair. And we found out how much this racing wheelchair cost, I about died. And my first impression was, we're never going to be able to raise $12,000. Our operating budget, not even close to that. And I doubted them for a minute. And I'll tell you, within 2 months, they had it and more. And I'm like, resilience. there's nothing you guys can't do if we tap into your strengths, not point out your weaknesses. It sounds like you would agree to that.
Oh no, I agree to that, and I also, I also think that the whole idea that you know human potential and who people are. I mean, there's so many stereotypical and stigmatized beliefs about people that really stop them from achieving, and I really feel badly about that. I mean, my most of my life has been, a good part of my life anyway, has been dedicated to social justice. The thing is that I've been really fortunate. I've been able to treat. I've worked in Camden, New Jersey, for which was the murder capital of the United States. When I was there, I was in Beirut. I was in the Palestine ghettos, and then I also treated congressmen, senators, and rock stars. And to me, you know, uh, I always got my growth from being on the street.
Mm.
For being
Yes.
with being with people. And my work in Camden is an example where I found the most maligned, most marginalized, most most stigmatized people you could possibly meet, and the people I learned to love more than anyone in my whole life, and who
Mm.
changed me in ways I could never imagine. So you got to look for the gifts in people, that because they're there if you look for them. You're not just a if you're really doing a good job, you're not just a giver. You're not telling people what to do. It's an exchange. You're learning from them as they learn from you.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And listeners, I hope you see this, that when Dr. Bob talks about being in these heavy areas, I mean, Beirut, I mean, no matter what year you were there, that had to be intense. I mean, and it's kind of interesting. You think, okay, with all the political unrest, all the craziness that went there, all the stuff that's kind of heavy, like still you were there with like-minded individuals to create something to help people who were down and out. That's incredible. Because the
Well,
last place you think you need to do that is at Beirut or like Camden, New Jersey, at the peak of the murder capital of but like you're going to places where that they need it the most, it sounds like.
well, to be honest, I always like to be transparent.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got there.
I love it.
I'd like to tell you I went there because I was a crusader on my horse. I was probably more like Don Quixote, fighting windmills.
Yeah.
I've never been that much of a that organized in that way, to be able to say that I went there uh, because someone would say, Bob, Dr. Bob, we need to go to Gaza Strip. And I say, really, Gaza Strip, man, there's bombings there now. He said,
Like,
yeah, but there's people who need help. I said, oh, well, okay, let's go. So and
yeah.
I've always been a ready, shoot, aim guy. And so
Yeah.
I never think, I just kind of go do it. And then I figure out how to do it when I get there, because I always felt that if I was honest and I brought, resources that were real, and I was humble and I respected people, that I could maybe add value or make a difference. If I went there with a preconceived notion on how I was going to change people, I know I would fail.
Hmm. But I mean, but that's the thing, Dr. Bob, is you could have been anything. You could have been a world-class plastic surgeon, living on the Riviera right now. Why this? What was your calling in this? Why this as a career and as a legacy to leave behind with so many people that you've influenced and the residuals? I mean, why this
Well,
population?
well, I came out of the streets of Brooklyn,
Mm.
and I wasn't a real good kid. Just want to, I was kind of I was a street rat,
Here, here.
and went to the worst possible educational system you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Barely, basically skipped high school. I'll make a long story short, and ended up by wonderful mentorship, or just happenstance, running into someone who said, try this community college out. And I found out that I not only was I not the bum that people were telling me I was, that I was actually smart. And I went all the way from there, and it's a long trip to my doctorate. And what I can tell you about that is that along the way, the things that makes my journey is the wonderful mentors and people that I've met who just took an interest in me personally.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing right now, Blue, is to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every single day, and I'm looking over another screen here because I just see, because almost every day I pick up another mentoree. I just this morning, early this morning, picked up a young man from St. Louis who is struggling to find his way into the field. And it doesn't matter to me who it is,
Yeah.
because it was these kinds of people, this kind of connectedness that that helps us to grow. And I think that's the most important part of 12-step recovery, is the 12-step.
It
So
is.
I think, because I think it's the giving it away that makes you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Eerily familiar stories, Dr. Bob, from the same thing, cut from the same cloth in different locations, I'll tell you. But that's the thing. And so, like you said, and listeners, I want you to take very particular attention to this, and that's how important is it for us and those who have found the light in sobriety and found their purpose to share it as a mentor. Like you said, that step 12 is a big deal. And I think any program or any experiences you have, if you don't have a similar serve out of your inconvenience attitude, you'll never understand or reach the full benefit of what this life has to offer. I mean, how important is it for, we talk about on Addict II Athlete, to turn the mess into the message, and that means to share it openly. No, we don't practice anonymity here. We're very open because we don't think that having an addiction makes you a bad person or a castaway. We look at it as being the strength to kind of like turn the mess into a message, and so how important is it for us and for those who have found some stability to share how it happened and to mentor those behind?
Well, I can tell you, I can say this unapologetically. I'm not apologizing at all. I'm just saying this as my, it's just my truth. So I'm a person of science.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that. I say that because I think that for me, if the person who goes into the hospital for diabetes or whatever deserves good science, the people who walk into my office deserve the same.
Yes.
And so I'm a person of science. I love research. I love science, and I have that. Like I said, I have this balance between my clinical background and my scientific background. So I really do approach things with a heart and with compassion, but it has to intersect with ethics and science, and
Right.
and that's a real challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge because people either lean one way or the other. I don't want to treat you like a machine. I want to have compassion and understand. I want to have, because I think the relationship is important. At the same time, I don't want to throw things at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to be able to provide you with some real life experience. So I'm working on some real serious algorithms and feedback mechanisms that inform care, and I'm working with different kinds of things. Right now, I'm working. I'm still doing a lot of adolescent work. I'm doing some adult work in different parts of the world.
Mm.
I keep moving. I'm one of those people that that I think that's part of my addiction, if you will, is that I just need to keep on keeping on.
Yep.
The athletes that you talk about, they are interesting subgroup.
Yeah.
And I know you're friends with my friend and brother Randy Grimes,
Absolutely.
and and I love him dearly. The,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that athletes run on adrenaline, and adrenaline is a drug. So
Absolutely, it is.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's really the whole subset of athletes, and how they replace one drug with another, and how they, and all of that. I think that the only reason I mention that is because that's part of science.
Yes.
So that that's part of that population.
I
Because
love it.
there's and I'm part of that set. I've been a mountain climber, an ice climber. I always thought if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room.
Uh-huh.
And so
I like it.
my wife calls me an adrenaline junkie, and I probably am. But at the same time, finding that balance for athletes,
Yep.
How do you find that balance between that adrenaline rush and that sense of well-being, that sense of calmness? And it's just
Yeah.
it's a struggle. And for me, I got to tell you a secret. Don't tell anyone.
Okay. I'll keep it to myself.
I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get there. I have to start new every single day. Some people get there and they say, I got it. I got it. I got it.
Yep.
They have this epiphany, I never had
Yep.
it. For me, I get up every morning and I go out and I hike several miles in the dark. And then I come back and I meditate and I kind of get myself in a very, I have to start over every single, and I do fine as long as I do it every day.
Yeah. But to me, what that sounds like, and this is something I teach the athletes, is that I call it like the theory of the gap. It's like we're kind of always in the middle. Every time we walk, run, stride, crawl to the horizon, it changes. Once you think you're there, you're like, wait a minute. Now the horizon's over there and they got to keep going. So I'm always kind of like, you guys, we're always kind of in the middle, always moving forward. And I love that principle. And you're absolutely right. And that's the beauty about what I've seen with Addict II Athlete is, although we call ourselves Addict II Athlete, athletics is such a small part to the bigger whole. What I've noticed instinctively, without even teaching this, that eventually those who have done the races, had the experiences, become the coaches to the next people. And they don't run as much. They don't do as much. They feel the strength in now training the next group to get where they are. And they find that same adrenaline in watching one of their new athletes cross that finish line. And it's, I think to me, that is the most precious thing. And it happened naturally because of the relationship-based, like community service that it provides. And so everything you spoke today, it just resonates with me, Dr. Bob, because it's what we've hoped to accomplish here. And I love the fact that it's aligning with people that I respect, because reading the stuff that you do, that's one thing Marissa's like, Blu, read this. And every time we read them, like, this is someone whose heart's in it because his heart's in it, not because he wants something in return. And that's how we feel as well. And I think that's kind of, hopefully in a utopian society, going to help a lot more people than is your check going to clear to make sure you can come into treatment today.
Well, I could say the same for you and Marissa, Blu, and when I met you for the first time, that's what struck me, my friend. And that's why I said, these are people that I want to be friends with. These are people that I want in my, under my umbrella and in my life, because the more people like that we have in each other's lives, the more, there's a synergy. We really do get to learn and grow from each other, and we learn from each other. And I really have been thinking about your work since the day I met you, and
thank you.
And I'm hoping that your work can be replicated in other places around the country, because it's so important and such good work that you do.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. That's the hope. And now that I know that you've got mentoring spots, I'm going to take one.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Listeners, you've been well fed today. I want to thank Dr. Bob for spending the time with us. Go back and listen to some of these principles. These are the things that I feel real change and real healing can come from and can stem from. I have one last question for you, Dr. Bob. What do you tell that person who's on the fence right now? Should I jump in, or should I just stay the course? Should I get going in recovery, or is it just too difficult? What do you tell that person that's kind of in that self-doubt frame of mind?
Oh, that's a really good question. So my answer is always a question. And you see, I never tell them anything.
I love it.
And so what I tell them, let's say you were that person, I would say, So tell me, my friend, what is it that you want? And how can and how can we get you what you want? Because it's not what I tell you to do. If you're on that fence, how does it feel to be on that fence? And is that the place you want to be right now?
Yeah.
And if you weren't on it, where would you want to be? And how can I help you get there? That would be because I always, there isn't a single patient that comes into my office who doesn't ask me as the first question, what do you think I should do? And I always tell them I have no idea. Matter of fact, if I knew what you could do, I'd probably be doing something else for a living. You could probably be reading minds, but I have no idea what you should do. I can't struggle. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that you're here in this place. And if we can determine what you want, maybe we can work together to help you get there. And that's really what it's about for me.
I love that, because so rarely does someone in that situation seeking help ever get asked, what do you want? They usually are told what they're going to do. So athletes, listeners alike, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing and sharing to the podcast. Thank you, Radio Ronin, for allowing Addict II Athlete to be part of the Radio Ronin network. And athletes, until next time, go turn your mess into a message.